Authentic collaboration is a nonprofit's only path for success.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Agency for Change podcast. This is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist of KidGlov. Today I want to talk to you about belonging, and I want to talk to you in a different way about belonging because our guest is Kyle Van Frank. He is the Executive Director of a great nonprofit out of St. Louis called One Classroom, and their mission is to provide a pathway for children with intellectual and developmental disabilities to attain a Catholic education alongside their neurotypical peers. And I think most of us would say that, yes, kids of varying disabilities should be able to go to school together. But I didn't realize the complexity of making that happen. And One Classroom is raising the funds, providing the pathways, providing the tools and resources for schools and families to make this a reality. So give this one a listen. Kyle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's great to have you back. You are one of our few second timers, but it was really important for you to come back because you are with a new organization now, and that organization is One Classroom. It's a great nonprofit with a mission to provide a pathway for children with intellectual and developmental disabilities to attain a Catholic education alongside their neurotypical peers. That says a lot, but tell me more. Before we get into how, I want to know why this work matters and what is the gap that you're filling?
It's a great question. Not just Catholic schools, but a lot of private education across our country just historically and traditionally has not had pathways for young people who learn differently.
Yeah.
So we are in existence because a family here in St. Louis didn't want their kids to go to school different places. They wanted both of their children to have a Catholic education. Catholic education is very ingrained in the culture here in St. Louis. There's 120 Catholic schools
That's a
here in the
lot of Catholic
Archdiocese.
schools.
It is. It is. And so yeah, we exist because many schools, it's not that they don't want children with disabilities to be there. It's that they've never served and educated children with disabilities. They don't know how, they don't have the resources. And so our organization exists because we knew there was this gap and there needed to be funding and education to fill it.
Oh, I love that. Kyle, one of my very favorite things, though, about that story is a family, just a regular family, right? They saw a need, they felt a need, and they did something about it. And I think it's so easy to see a need and say, we should do something about that. But your founders actually did and look at the legacy they created. So kudos to your organization and that family for making it happen. So now let's talk a little bit more about this, though, because I'm going to guess that a lot of families with children who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, they may not even realize this option exists for them, whether it be St. Louis or any other community. What does the path to One Classroom typically look like?
Typically get a phone call from a family who usually heard about us from another family.
Uh-huh.
The disability community, it's a really close knit, interwoven community. And so it's often a parent, maybe of a child with autism, who knows another parent, maybe through a therapy provider or another community resource they utilize. And they say, well, where is your child going to school? Oh, they go to a Catholic school. How was that possible?
Yeah.
And then connect the family to us. And so We talk to the family, learn about the student, learn what school is their home parish school, and then we get the ball rolling. Sometimes families just want information and resources and advice, and they want to make the first step.
Mm.
Some schools want us to make the call, which we're happy to do and facilitate a meeting with the school. So it's sort of different family to family. Sometimes schools call us because a family has come to their doorstep and they know about us and are looking for resources and education.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in a school setting. I mean, schools and teachers have so many responsibilities, right? I mean, I think about historically, the one room schoolhouse with one teacher teaching all the kids, right? And the chaos of all of that. And it just feels like the requirements today on schools and teachers are very high. So, what does it look like when one classroom comes in to support a school and a family and a student or group of students? What is that process like?
It's a great question. And I have to, before I answer it, say I love that the one room schoolhouse is what came to mind. If you've seen our logo, the inspiration for that was actually the Winslow Homer snapping the whip painting. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that inspired Tony Armitage and Leon Armitage, our co-founders, that painting and that image of all of the children playing together outside that one room schoolhouse together. So I just love that's what came to mind.
That's
Um,
fantastic. And I have seen your logo, and we'll talk about why in a little bit here.
yeah. So the resources that are delivered, oftentimes, finances are the
Yeah,
first barrier. And so we grant about $600,000 annually to
that's a
schools
lot
to
of
fund.
money.
It's a lot of money. We're blessed to be able to have generosity of our donors. 100% of those funds are annual donor, donations that are made to one classroom. And we're just, extremely blessed by the support of our community that allows us to do that. Those dollars support about 34 schools in our area, so that 140 students with 30 unique diagnoses can
Wow.
attend those. So it funds support staff, maybe a paraprofessional or maybe a special education teacher who can modify curriculum. But oftentimes, yes, money is a challenge, it's a need, it's a barrier. But oftentimes, even when the funds are present, day one of school comes, and the general education teacher, who, no matter their background, probably has only ever had one, maybe two special education courses, right, in their career.
Yeah.
And they were probably topic classes where they learned what Down syndrome is and what dyslexia is, but didn't learn any strategies. And so we have a full-time programming director who does 700 to 900 hours each school year in the
Wow.
schools, doing coaching, on-site support, workshops, continuing education. We also invest $25,000 annually in behavior support therapy from board certified behavior analysts who can go in and provide suggestions for teachers, educators on behavior strategies. So we partner with local universities and offer free continuing education through Webster University and St. Louis University here in town in all sorts of different topics for principals, teachers, paraprofessionals. So our goal is to provide support for schools. Some schools, we hear from them once a year when it's time to apply for a grant, and then they rock and roll. Other
Yeah.
schools, we might visit them once a week and everything in between. We want to provide as much care and support as needed so that students can be successful.
Kyle, as you go through that list of things that you do and services you provide, I mean, I think a lot of us hear the idea of, providing access to the schools sounds like a great idea, and it is a great idea. I think probably very few of us realize the complexity of making it happen, which is really a very big deal. So I'm really curious, kind of learning about the why and the how. I love stories. Can you take us to a specific moment or story that really speaks to the meaning of this work?
There's really two that I feel like have come up lately here at the end of the school year, just really good, heartwarming stories where you're like, okay, that's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
We could talk, reading intervention and behavior support and, all of the nuts and bolts for hours, and those are important, but it's often the simple things. So there's a student at one of the schools we support. They were having their annual award ceremony at the end of the school year, and they award a virtue award to a student who has embodied the virtues and values of their school, being kind, being respectful, generous to your peers. And one of the students we support who has a rare genetic disorder was one of the recipients. And mom took a video. It's actually on our social media, and it's an amazing video of her sprinting down the aisle to go receive the certificate. And she stands watching the principal. And when he says her name, she looks back at mom towards
Mm,
us, the camera, and just the look in her eyes, hearing her name be recognized. And to me, that's true belonging. This is
yeah.
not just a student who's present because it maybe made us feel good or we thought that would be the nice thing to do. She's integral to the community. She's a leader in the school.
Yeah.
They can't imagine their school without her.
That's
Um,
so cool. Yeah, Kyle, you just gave me goosebumps here. If you and I were in the same room together, we're doing this over
yeah.
Zoom. If we were in the same room together, you'd be seeing goosebumps. But that was the first story. You said there were two.
Yeah, another young man, he's unfortunately bounced around to several schools, just, schools that weren't able to serve his needs.
Hmm.
And finally, mom found us and we were able to get him into a school where he is loved and supported and celebrated. And his growth in just a year, I mean, it's night and day. And mom texted us the last week of school. He got to go on his first field trip.
Mm,
And the grin from ear to ear of him sitting on that bus. Again, it's the little things. We could talk about all of the social, emotional, and academic growth,
right.
which have also been tremendous and are important. But he got to just be one of the kids. So it's really special moments where kids, get to be a part of a community and understand something that I think neurotypical folks like you and I sometimes take for granted, which is belonging.
Right. Right. We do take it for granted and I mean, it's even, I think, a word that we throw around a lot and don't really think about what it would mean to a young man who's never been on a field trip before, right? And I think back, it's been a long time since I was in school, but think about how hard it was the few occasions I had to change schools, right? Even as an adult,
Yeah.
how difficult it is to change employment and be with a different group of people and who am I going to go to lunch with? Who am I going to, chat with? And going through that experience and getting to a place where you feel that belonging and enjoy the little things that some of us take for granted. There's a lot of life lessons in there, Kyle. A lot
Yeah.
of life lessons for all of us. So when I think about you and the work that you do, I know, Kyle, that you are at the intersection of faith, you are at the intersection of disability inclusion, of Catholic education. I'm really curious because I know you are very good at your job and I know you're raising these funds, a lot of funds to make this work happen. I'm really curious, what is the case that you make to donors about, about this situation and the intersection of those three causes?
Yeah, it's a gift in a lot of ways, right? That we're able to approach individuals that might be passionate about Catholic education, or they're passionate about serving people with disabilities, or they're passionate simply about education itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what we talk about a lot in some of our narrative pieces on social media when we're talking face to face to donors is when someone supports one classroom, they're giving a child a gift of normalcy, of constancy, of
Mm,
appreciation, of love. And so belonging, right? Again, not to miss, overuse that word, but there's a great, because I know you love research, there's a great
yes.
professor and researcher at Baylor University, Dr. Eric Carter, and he has studied belonging and talks about the 12 dimensions of belonging. When you think about a place where you were really valued in your life, really appreciated, where you sort of had the cheers effect, right? You walked in and
Yeah.
everyone gave you a norm, right?
Yeah, right. Because it's not just everybody. The song says where everybody knows your name, but it's like everybody knows your name and they're like cheering you on, right? They're accepting you for who you are and they're cheering you on.
Yeah. And for so many, and again, it's not a criticism, but for most people, they don't have a personal relationship with a person with a disability. And so often people with disabilities, there's fear. We're afraid to approach them, to talk to them, to get near them. There's a fragility that we project that I can't approach this individual the way I would someone else in my life. And we watch the students we support how much it means to them to get a high five in the hallway,
Yeah.
to have a buddy, to have a friend. And so that's one side of it, right? Is it's children that don't know what it's like to just simply be known and loved, which is our deepest desire, right?
Hmm.
And especially in a Christian organization, to we always say to help students not just know who they are, but whose they are. But on the flip side of that, for students without disabilities, I actually think the benefits are even greater for those students. It's
Right.
forming, it's forming great leaders. It's forming responsible young people, people who know, understand empathy, kindness, things that can't be taught in a textbook. But again, every one of us want our children to develop those types of soft skills.
Yes.
These are natural, organic ways for that to happen.
I think about the learning of how to accept, not only accept someone who is different, but value and, learn what special talents, skills, personalities, aspects they bring into your community. And I think that's something that's probably difficult to do without experience and something that will serve someone their entire lives in a very beautiful way. So I think that's great. All right. Kyle, you know that I love marketing. You know that I love research. You know that I love marketing because I'm in nonprofit marketing. I talk a lot about fundraising. And I have heard you talk before about how fundraising and marketing can be great tools for a nonprofit to further their mission. And I'd love for you to talk more about how that works at One Classroom.
Yeah. Well, I think, a nonprofit, I don't like to compare fundraising to sales, but it's our closest one-to-one from the for-profit
For
industry, right?
sure. I think there's a lot of similarities there, for sure.
Yeah. And I don't think you and I could talk about a successful for-profit entity that has misaligned sales and marketing.
100%, right? They have to go together. But yet, I
Yeah.
also have worked with a number of for profits and nonprofits where there's some dysfunction and tension between those two areas, right?
Yeah. So I think though that the path for success for nonprofits is aligning those two initiatives.
Yeah.
We I mean, we're a small team at One Classroom. So for us, to a certain extent, there's an ease of proximity. So we're able to ensure we're working on, we do a late summer campaign, and we're working on putting the finishing touches on that before it launches in July.
Yeah.
And it's really, easy for our, part-time marketing person and our full-time development person to hop on a call, plan everything out, make
Yeah.
sure that all of the visual identity is the same, that the language is the same, that the messaging is all the same across all the platforms, across the phone calls that are going to be made, the letter, all of
Yes.
those things. But we know that it's hard on the inside, I think, for nonprofits because we're like, oh, if we say the same thing on social media
Right.
and in email and on the phone and in paper, we're going to annoy people, we're going to wear them out. And the reality that I think we all have to take is look in the mirror and say, okay, they're not all listening,
Right.
right?
Sadly, they're not all listening, at least
Yeah.
not with the same intensity that we are.
and not everyone is catching everything. And we are one of several organizations that are
Yes.
mailing them, calling them, marketing to them. And so it requires consistency to be able to break through, to resonate, to build an element of understanding and comprehension even.
Yes.
So for us, it's an essential. Our marketing and our fundraising teams are they're blurred. Yeah, we have titles, but
Yeah.
very much our marketing person is working in fundraising, our fundraising person is working in marketing. And so I would say the biggest is we don't have conversations separate of each
Mm.
other.
Yeah.
When a blog post is written, our development person knows about it, right? Is
Right.
seeing it being posted, that's now a new story they can take to donors. And vice versa, if a development person is, meeting with a donor and here's a great story, it immediately goes to marketing so that we can be sure that we're keeping a good open channel of communication.
Kyle, on that same note, I have been invited to speak this year at a conference in Washington, D.C. called the Bridge Conference for Nonprofit Fundraising and Marketing. And I find it fascinating that it's called the Bridge because it's bringing those two areas together. And a friend of mine who has been to this conference before told me, Lynn, you'll be able to feel the tension in the room between the marketers and the fundraisers. So I'm really hoping that I can help, alleviate some of that tension. But I'd love to hear your advice too for that nonprofit leader who's like, I can't get my fundraising and my marketing on the same page. How are you
Yeah.
doing it, Kyle? Because I know you've been successful at this at multiple organizations now.
I think that every nonprofit, from the one with a budget less than $100,000 to the one who has $100 million budget,
Yeah.
we're all spread thin. We're all feeling the pressure at all times to do
Yes.
more. And so I think it's sometimes we become siloed out of this sort of guilt of,
Mm,
well, there's already so many meetings, there's already so many projects. But I think that as a leader, you have to prioritize formal occasions for
yeah.
development and marketing to connect. If you're a big organization and you're blessed to have, a chief marketing officer and a chief development officer, those two should meet once a week. And you as their, executive, understand the cadence of when should you be popping into those meetings.
Hmm.
But there has to be consistent and constant dialogue between the two. But I think that, that tension, when I started grad school, we read an article about this idea of a culture of philanthropy.
Hmm.
And the author talked about her first, job as in development 30 years prior to writing this article. And they were taking her a tour of this beautiful nonprofits facility and the programming offices and the marketing offices and the operations and finance offices. And then they walked down these stairs past a big boiler around the corner. And there at the end of the hall was the fundraising office. Now, I think that dynamic has changed a little bit in nonprofits, and
Yeah.
but there is sort of this element of, oh, here comes the fundraising team, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
think that there has to become, ending the conversation of, especially for an organization like us, this is easy for us. 100% of our budget is fundraised. We have no earned
Yeah.
income streams. So for us, there's not really a question of programs versus
It's,
fundraising.
we're all in this together. Yeah, for
Exactly. It's a chicken
sure.
and an egg. But I think if you can find a way to articulate that in any organization, it's really important that every member of the team understands their role in fundraising. And that might not be making an ask, but asking is such a small part of fundraising. So
Right.
how can you engage the rest of the staff in thinking and reporting, the things that people actually usually enjoy doing more than asking anyway? And I think that's an easy way. If marketing can get excited about thanking people, reporting,
Right.
that impact narrative, I think it's a way to sort of buy in a way that then creates sort of natural collaboration.
Yeah. Kyle, I always think about if you turn your focus away from all of the little things that are happening internally and you put the focus on the impact, the benefactor, And then the person you're asking to donate, what is the thread that ties them all together? What is the importance of this? Because
Mhm.
I know this might sound soft and fluffy, but really, you are giving someone a gift by inviting the opportunity to participate. And I think for me, from a marketing standpoint, and when I do have my fundraising hat on or my sales hat on, that's always where I have to go. I'm inviting someone to participate in something. So, anyway, well, Kyle, I know that you came to this work through your own Catholic education experience. How does that personal history change the way you think about what one classroom is building?
It's a great question. I grew up going to Catholic schools where we always had a great supports. We didn't have students with really significant disabilities, but I grew up with several friends who had more mild to moderate learning differences like dyslexia and dysgraphia, dyscalculia. And we had reading and math interventionists, we had school counselors. And so I just sort of grew up thinking that's the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then got out into the world and realized that was a real rarity and it was a real gift. And
Yeah.
so for me, I think about the childhood that I grew up in, that I don't want, anyone to be denied of that, because
Mm,
it was so special. I loved it, and I don't just believe, we know that the Catholic Church teaches us that we're not to deny anyone who seeks an education.
mm-hmm.
Catholic schools have this beautiful history in our country as being some of the first institutions to educate women, some of the first
I did
institutions
not
to
know that.
many cities, the first school that educated young women, especially in the Midwest, New England, were Catholic schools.
Wow.
Um, First schools often to integrate in the South before the law required it were Catholic schools. And so to me, this is such a natural progression in the history of Catholic education for our country to say who's missing from the table, who is not gaining access right now. How do we open the doors wider for students who need additional support to learn? So I think for me, it's just important because it changed my life. It made me who I am. And I know that there's so many students, regardless of their learning ability, who it can change their life too.
Yeah. Kyle, I want to go back to one thing. And actually, since you talked about history, we mentioned the one room schoolhouse. I mean, one of the reasons you and I know each other so well, I mean, we've developed a friendship over the years, but you've also been participating in Kid Glove's Brand Impact Accelerator that helped you make some refinements to messaging and the logo. But I'm curious, would you share a little bit about what that experience has been like?
Yeah, it's been a game changer for
Mm.
us. We just celebrated the end of our 10th school year, as an organization.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's amazing to see what's gone, grown from the Armitage's dining room table, supporting 3 students at one school to again 140 students at almost 35 schools next year. And, you know, we are really transitioning from startup mentality to long-term sustainability.
Yeah.
And so conversations about marketing strategy and, multi-channel alignment and those types of things I just haven't been on the to-do list or the map. And so this has really been an opportunity for us to say, okay, it's our first time really talking about strategy, messaging, goals, audience, all of those things that I think some of them have been floating sort of up here in the
Yeah.
ether. We maybe knew them, but we didn't have them on paper. We didn't have the plan. And so sometimes we were really broad or maybe scattered and not as targeted and intentional as we needed to be. So it gave us a roadmap to be able to in such a wonderfully succinct and clear way, walk through the process, really begin to hear from our community and use their insights, our own insights and collaboration to say, who is one classroom? What makes us special? What makes us stand out?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because the feedback from our community is that everyone loves us, but we also know our particular organization, not a lot of people know about us in the area. So how do we take this great market feedback, these five-star reviews,
Yeah.
and get them out into the world? And so it's given us a really clear direction for that and an opportunity, I think, to enter the next 10 years so much stronger than where we're ending it.
Kyle, I'm so excited for you. And we don't give grades in the accelerator, but if we did, A plus to you and your team. And I really am excited to see where you go in the next 10 years with this strategic foundation. So, Kyle, for people who've been listening, who want to donate, want to help out, want to find out, how do they find out more about One Classroom?
It's a great question. It's our website is probably the best, and it's ONE-classroom. I always spell out the one, but it's one-classroom.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, one-classroom. But our website is the best place. As a part of this process we were just talking about, we've done some great upgrades in the last 9 months to our website. So there's a lot of great information, whether you're a parent, an educator,
Mm.
or you're a supporter that wants to learn how to get involved and engaged.
That's awesome. That is awesome. We will have those links in the show notes as well. All right, Kyle, I'm going to ask you my favorite question. And you have answered this once before, but all of our listeners know I am inspired by motivational quotes. I would say I am a collector of quotes, and I would like one more Kyle Van Frank original to inspire our listeners.
Yeah, the one that was coming to mind, and I think as we've made our way through the conversation, it's resonating with me, is authentic collaboration is a nonprofit's only path for success.
Mm. Can you tell me more? Elaborate. I love it, but
Yeah.
elaborate.
Yeah, as we're talking about whether that's internal, is your CFO talking to your development office, talking to your marketing office? We have to collaborate, and not just as a buzzword, but are there formal opportunities? I'm a working genius person. I love that KidGlov is a working
Yes,
genius
we love
place.
the working genius. Remind me of your geniuses, Kyle.
Wonder and invention.
Of course, of course. You are a big picture thinker that likes to
Yeah.
come up with ideas. Galvanizer has to be in your competencies too.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So, but I think about, that knowing who's on your team, really understanding how do people collaborate, because collaboration is big, right? That's a big picture thing. How do we collaborate externally with the people we serve, with other partners, with our donors? So I really think about, maybe another way to phrase this is a nonprofit's not just a mouthpiece, we're also a set of ears, right?
Ooh, really nice, Kyle. That is, I think you've just given us a bonus quote there, or a bonus that's great. I've never heard that either of those, and I think that's fantastic. Kyle, I have loved this conversation. And before we go any further, since we mentioned Working Genius, and I've talked about Working Genius before, I think on the podcast, but anybody who's interested, it's a great work style assessment from Patrick Lencioni. If you just Google the table group or Working Genius, you will find it. It's very accessible. We find it to be an extremely helpful tool. All right, Kyle, I always love talking with you, and I'm a little bit sad that this is coming to an end. But as we wrap up our time together, I'd love to know what's the most important thing you'd like our listeners to remember about the work that you're doing.
I think it's that every child wants to learn, wants to grow, wants to develop, but it's going to look different for every child. And so I think that whether it's your own child, it's a friend's child, whether you're an educator or someone hearing about this for the first
Yeah.
time, it's that children want to belong, they want to learn, and we just have to be patient, loving, and understanding, so that they can all do so at their own rate, their own pace.
Kyle, that is beautiful. I have really loved this conversation, and I just want to say I fully believe the world needs more people like you, more families like the Armitages who, see an issue and make a difference, and more organizations like One Classroom. Thank you so much for taking time to share today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KIDGLOV.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.